When Arnold Schwarzenegger calmly asked one question about Melania Trump's visa, it wasn't an attack, it was a trigger. The kind of sentence that doesn't raise voices, it silences them. Cameras kept rolling. But something had shifted. Because in a room built on paperwork and press passes, someone finally asked who doesn't get asked anything. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The camera was already rolling. Not the one pointed at the stage. The one that captured faces, not speeches. They called it a town hall, but everything was scripted. The lighting was neutral daylight. The moderator's smile had been held for too long. The audience, mostly Georgetown law students and alumni donors, had been pre-seated by affiliation. Arnold Schwarzenegger sat stage left. Dark suit. No tie. A small gold pin on his lapel read, "Naturalized, 1983. Across from him, Senator Clay Wexler. Republican. Georgia. The kind of man who gripped the sides of a podium like he'd once owned a gavel. Wexler was under pressure. His name had just surfaced in a leaked memo from a border security PAC, suggesting he'd backed visa leniencies for wealthy foreign investors. The clip was already circulating on political Twitter. So when the moderator turned to him and asked about legacy pathways for immigrant professionals, Wexler didn't answer the question. He smiled. "I respect the governor here," he began, not looking at Arnold, but directly into camera one. "Some of us didn't grow up in luxury." Pause. One beat. "But we didn't have to audition for patriotism either." Laughter, light, controlled. Front row. One student raised an eyebrow but kept clapping. Behind the camera wall, a sound technician muted his own chuckle. Wexler folded his hands with the ease of a man who believed he'd just ended the segment. Arnold didn't blink. He pressed his pen between thumb and forefinger, not tightly. Just enough. Crack. The sound was microscopic. Only his lav mic caught it. The pen tip had split. Row 6. Seat 3. A young woman in a grey Georgetown hoodie turned slightly. She noticed the sound. Noted it. Didn't say a word. The moderator stepped in quickly, trying to level the air. "Thank you, Senator. Governor Schwarzenegger, we'll move into closing remarks now. Any final thoughts?" There was no response. Arnold didn't move. The lights hadn't changed. But the room had. The moderator shifted. Wexler smirked. The tech director whispered, "Hold on camera one." Arnold adjusted in his seat, subtly, and looked, for the first time that night, not at Wexler, not at the moderator, but toward the rear left corner of the room, where the show's control booth was. It was only a glance. But it was the kind that asked, how long before they cut the feed? The moderator repeated, more gently now, "Governor." Arnold rose. He didn't bring his notes. Only a folded, worn piece of paper from his inner jacket pocket, its corner slightly torn, edges soft from decades of being opened, folded, opened again. He walked to the center podium. The mic adjusted with a hiss. The girl in the hoodie raised her phone slowly. Just her. No flash. Arnold looked straight into the broadcast camera. "Since we're evaluating patriotism," he said, calmly, "perhaps the senator would like to clarify Melania Trump's 01 visa history." Silence. Not dramatic silence, procedural silence. The kind that hits just before someone reaches for the off switch. The moderator froze. Wexler's jaw tightened. No one interrupted. A seat creaked. From the back, a faint mechanical whir, someone adjusting a camera arm manually. Arnold stepped back. Said nothing more. Returned to his seat. The old paper was still in his hand. He unfolded it slowly, rested it on the desk in front of him. It was handwritten. Letters slightly slanted. Ink faint in the middle, darker toward the edges. The top line read, "Silence doesn't protect them." The second, "But precision might." The girl in the hoodie posted a 14-second clip to TikTok. Caption, "He just asked." It hit 40,000 views before the moderator could close the segment. No one clapped. But no one looked away either. And on Arnold's desk, under the studio light, the paper cast a shadow, longer than the microphone itself. The moderator hadn't moved. Her lips parted, eyes searching the teleprompter for a transition that no longer fit the room. Senator Wexler sat still, too still. One hand gripped the edge of his chair, the other flattened a page that had nothing to do with visas. Arnold stood. He didn't fix his jacket, didn't clear his throat, didn't look at anyone, only lowered his eyes, precisely, for 1 second, to the brushed metal plaque on the front edge of the podium. Arnold Schwarzenegger, naturalized citizen, 1983. It was small, barely noticeable on camera. But the font was clean, centered, permanent. He looked back up, straight into the lens of camera 1. The red tally light blinked. Arnold didn't blink. He leaned slightly toward the mic. Not to speak louder, but to make the distance feel shorter. "Since we're evaluating patriotism," he said, his voice low, leveled, "perhaps the senator would like to clarify Melania Trump's '01 visa history." No rise in tone. No change in posture. Just 12 words, delivered without rush, without pause, without apology. The air didn't move. The audience didn't shift. What changed was deeper, a texture under the silence. Wexler's head turned, but not fully. Just enough to catch the edge of Arnold's frame on the monitor screen in front of him. He tried to smile. The left side of his mouth obeyed. The right did not. The moderator blinked once, then twice. The production booth cut to a wide shot, safe, neutral, useless. Camera 3 zoomed in late, catching only Wexler's hand slowly curling the corner of his folder. Arnold stepped away from the mic. Not back to his seat. Just to the side. One step. Leaving the podium lit, empty, but still broadcasting. A student in row 4 whispered, "Did he just?" Her friend hushed her without turning. Behind the risers, the show's legal consultant leaned into a headset. "Do we have precedent on this?" she asked. "On what?" the assistant producer replied. "On asking questions no one's allowed to answer." In the green room backstage, Arnold's aide Lane stared at the feed in silence. His hand hovered over his phone. He didn't text. He didn't breathe. He watched. The moderator shuffled her papers. "Governor," she began. But Arnold didn't look at her. He was watching the far end of the room now, not the cameras, not the lights, but the audience. A man in uniform had just crossed his arms. A woman with an interpreter shifted her legs beneath her seat. They weren't reacting. They were absorbing. The mic was still live. But no one touched it. A cough came from Wexler's table. Deliberate. Too soft to be theatrical. Too loud to be ignored. He leaned forward. "Is that supposed to be a joke, Governor?" he asked, using the full title like a blade. Arnold's head turned. "Not fully. Just enough. Only if the visa was," he said. Another beat. Wexler straightened, eyes flashing toward the moderator as if silently demanding intervention. None came. So he leaned on the oldest trick, laughter. A dry, clipped chuckle, once, twice, followed by a shake of the head. "Let's keep this serious," he said, returning to his notes. "By all means," Arnold replied, stepping fully away from the podium now. "Let's." The audience was silent, but not neutral. Something had pivoted, not the facts, not the politics, the expectation. They were no longer watching a debate. They were watching a reset. Wexler reached for his water. His hand trembled, barely. But the camera noticed. It always does. Arnold returned to his seat. Slowly, deliberately. The folded paper was still on the desk in front of him. He didn't touch it. But its presence now carried weight. Not because of what it said, but because it hadn't been removed. In row 6, the Georgetown girl with the hoodie hit post. The TikTok caption was short, when the accent asked the real question. He just asked. It had 12,000 likes before Wexler found his next sentence. The clip was 37 seconds long. By the time the post-event coffee carts were wheeled into the hallway, it had reached 72,000 views. By the time Senator Wexler reached the elevator, it had hit 110,000. The caption was simple. He didn't accuse. he asked. And everything changed. Cable producers scrambled. At 7:11 p.m., the first chyron appeared on Patriot Channel News. Arnold smears First Lady, disgraceful attack on family and country. The broadcast alternated between archival footage of Melania at state dinners and a still of Arnold mid-blink, expressionless, but cut to look menacing. Inside the studio green room at Capital One Plaza, Wexler loosened his tie. His media advisor, Darren, entered with a printed briefing. Melania's visa, we need to get ahead of this. Some immigration lawyers are pointing to potential O1 discrepancies. There's this 2001 freelance job before official authorization. Wexler didn't even take the paper. He waved it off. We're not fact-checking. We're framing. Then he smirked. We make this about patriotism, not paperwork. Darren hesitated. But if someone digs, they won't, Wexler snapped. Because no one wants to pull that thread. Meanwhile, across the city, in a downtown parking structure, Arnold wiped the windshield of his black electric SUV. Spray. Circle. Cloth. Spray again. His phone buzzed on the seat. Lane Robbins, comms director. Again. Then again. He didn't answer. He moved to the side mirror. Cleaned the chrome edge. The phone buzzed a third time. Arnold answered. Go. Lane's voice was tight. Patriot Channel, Real Talk, Newsflash, they're flooding. Trump just posted in all caps. Melania's trending. I've got 3 interview invites and a death threat flagged by Meta. Arnold reached for the base of the mirror. Did they clip the full sentence? No, Lane replied. They only used the phrase and the name. Out of context. Reaction shots. Same playbook. Arnold didn't sigh. He just breathed. One deep inhale. Let them cook, he said. I already turned off the stove. Lane didn't reply. Arnold ended the call. Behind the headlines, the second wave had already begun. On TikTok, the Georgetown girl's post hit 212,000 views. She zoomed in on the podium plaque before the moment landed. Caption, he looked at this first. Then said that. He just asked. The comments were no longer jokes. They were recollections. My mom got deported over a form typo. My cousin spent 14 months waiting for a visa stamp. Melania got one in a modeling portfolio. Funny how calm hits harder than yelling. In a dorm room at NYU, a law student with a soft accent and sharper memory posted a quiet response video. I've had 3 visa interviews. I've cried in 2 of them. I was told my intentions didn't sound convincing enough. But no one can ask one question about the First Lady's timeline. Why is silence the only thing she's entitled to? Hashtag, #same standards please at 9:22 p.m., CNN's legal analyst tweeted, let's be clear, O1 visa holders must prove sustained a claim. There were questions about Melania's qualifications back in 2001. They weren't new. Just buried. Meanwhile, Lane sat in the comms office, surrounded by blinking screens. He had a tweet typed, "We stand by Governor Schwarzenegger's comments in full context." No attack was made. The point was about fairness. He hovered. Deleted it. Instead, he opened a folder of internal assets. Clicked on the still frame from the live stream. Arnold. Standing. Calm. The podium nameplate in frame. Naturalized citizen 1983, no caption. Just lighting. Lane opened his email. Subject, statement attachment, full unedited event video recipients, 14 political editors, no commentary. He hit send. Back in the Capital One green room, a junior producer entered Wexler's prep room. You're up in 4. Segment will go hard, Melania defense, character appeal, then pivot to family values. Wexler checked his collar. Easy points. The producer paused. You sure you don't want to see the full clip first? Wexler barely looked up. No need. I know what he said. At 10:45 p.m., a fringe commentator went live. Schwarzenegger should remember, citizenship can be revoked. By midnight, the word deport was trending in meme format. Someone photoshopped a green card with Arnold's face, stamped revoked in red. At 12:04 a.m., The Late Show ran the moment. The joke fell flat. The host blinked, then said, "I mean, he just asked a question." Polite laughter. The crowd didn't roar. Because something else had happened. The audience was shifting. Not politically. Not ideologically. But structurally. They were realizing who gets to ask. And who never has to answer. At 12:38 a.m., Lane's inbox lit up. Not with insults. But with two simple subject lines: "My father was deported. Thank you." He sat back. Closed the laptop. Didn't draft a press release. Didn't call Arnold. Didn't plan a counter-narrative. He opened a YouTube tab. Played the full video. Watched the moment again. Just before Arnold spoke, just before the question, the frame caught his glance. Not at the audience, not at the senator, but at the nameplate. Naturalized Citizen 1983 underneath it. No applause. No reaction. Just light. And a folded piece of paper. Still unopened. The cafe wasn't listed on Google Maps. It sat behind a shuttered bookstore in Pasadena, with no sign on the glass. The only illumination came from a flickering wall sconce and a cracked open freezer chest filled with melting ice packs. There were no microphones. No lanyards. Just a metal fan spinning in one corner, half rust, half rhythm. Arnold sat at the smallest table. Across from him, Rosa Navarro. Short hair now. One hoop earring. The scar on her left wrist barely visible. She placed the manila envelope down without greeting. No handshake. No smile. No reminiscing. She tapped the edge twice with her index finger, then slid it across. He didn't touch it yet. Rosa leaned back. Arms crossed. "They thought I'd keep it," she said. "I didn't." Arnold looked at the folder. The fan clicked once. "I know what it costs," she added. "To see it. And still not look away." He nodded. Not agreement. Just acknowledgement. The envelope remained closed. Untouched. She stood. No farewell. Just left. The camera, if there had been one, would have caught nothing except the condensation ring her water glass left behind. Arnold opened the folder. 3 pages. He looked at each one for exactly 3 seconds. Page 1, a signed affidavit from a former agency staffer. Page 2, a visa processing form with an altered timestamp. Page 3, a confidential memo noting internal pressure to expedite application #447701 due to national interest optics. He closed the envelope, pressed it flat with his palm, then folded it in half, neatly. No commentary. No note. That night, the skyline over Santa Monica glowed dull orange, the kind of light that feels like a warning without thunder. In his study, Arnold sat at a desk made of recycled steel. On the desk, his old Polaroid scanner. A cracked keyboard. One lamp, no shade. He fed the pages in, one by one. The scanner whirred like a slow exhale. He named the file, standard_disclosure_no_commentary.pdf, no bold font. No metadata edits. No embedded source tracking. Then he opened a new email. To editorial@washpost.com, legaldesk@cnn.com, archives@propublica.org, tips@reuters.com, verify@nytimes.com, truth@atlanticmonthly.com, flag@axios.com. Subject: no commentary attachment. Standard_disclosure_no_commentary PDF body. Empty. He clicked send. Then unplugged the scanner. Folded the power cord once. Then again. Placed it in a drawer beside an old immigration pamphlet. Cover torn. At 6:13 a.m., the Washington Post uploaded the file under the headline: Documents raise questions about O1 visa pathway for former First Lady. By 6:22 a.m., Wexler's aide called his voicemail. "Sir, it's on every outlet." Axios linked the timestamp form. CNN cross-referenced the payroll date. They're asking for a response. No callback came. Because Wexler was already in a car. Window half down. Tie half knotted. He had seen the story an hour earlier. had read the memo line 3 times, and still couldn't figure out why it felt more like a mirror than an attack. At 8:45 a.m., Rosa Navarro walked past a bus stop in East LA. A group of teenagers scrolled their phones. One of them held up the story. "Is this real?" he asked. Rosa didn't slow down. But just before turning the corner, she said without looking back, "It always was." At 9:05 a.m., a clip surfaced from a local public radio call-in show. Caller ID, blocked. Voice, untrained. Older. Male. "I'm not saying she didn't deserve it. I'm saying my daughter also deserved it. And no one fast-tracked her. No one pushed her paperwork because it made America look prettier on camera." Silence. Then the host cleared her throat and said, "We're going to take a short break." No press conference came from Arnold. No TV interview. No camera in his driveway. Just a stillness that moved faster than any headline. On Reddit, a user posted a screenshot of the file name. Caption: "He didn't name names. He sent pages." By noon, 5 different right-wing talk shows had constructed the same defense. "There's no official accusation here. Just paperwork taken out of context." But every time they showed the scanned pages, viewers paused, read, zoomed in, and saw the dates. They didn't see fury. They saw formatting. The truth wasn't loud. It was formatted in Times New Roman, 11 points, and signed in blue ink. At 12:49 p.m., Lane received a text from an unknown number. No words. Just the image of the envelope. Unfolded. Lying on a granite counter. A post-it beside it read, "You didn't even have to open it loud." Lane didn't reply. He just pinned the image. Above it, he added a short comment to his private Slack archive: "We didn't break the story. We just let them open their own mouths." By 3 p.m., hashtags had returned. He just asked, let them open, no commentary needed on campus. The Georgetown student, same girl in the hoodie, uploaded a TikTok overlaying her old footage with the leaked scan. She whispered in the background, "I used to think you had to yell to be heard. Turns out, sometimes, you just have to send a file." The footage didn't go viral because of a headline. It spread because someone forgot to mute the background mic. It was during a press Q&A. No podium. Just folding chairs and a backdrop with a fading American flag. Melania's former senior aide, Claire Donnell, was mid-sentence. Her blouse was perfectly pressed. Her voice had the cadence of someone who'd been trained by 3 different PR teams. "We categorically reject the implication," and then it happened. A second voice. Off camera. Muffled, but picked up clean. Did she ever file her own renewal? A pause. Not from Claire. From the audience. It was the kind of pause that people don't take notes during. Claire blinked. Swallowed. I'm not here to discuss individual filings," she said, smile trying to outrun her pupils. But the stillness had already landed. One journalist looked at another. No one asked who spoke the question. Because by now, they understood the new rules. The most dangerous voice was the one that didn't own the mic. At 3:03 p.m. that afternoon, C-SPAN released a side-angle clip of Claire's response. No commentary. Just the full video. By 3:47 p.m., it had one caption: "She blinked." That night on CNN, the panel didn't start with outrage. It started with a stammer. Replay slowed down to 25%. A still frame of Claire's eyes just before the swallow. Then, archive footage from 2001. Melania walking into a modeling agency, time-stamped May 5, 2001, 3 months before her official O1 visa was approved. The panel didn't yell. They didn't have to. The footage was doing the yelling without sound. Back in Santa Monica, Arnold sat alone on a bench overlooking the marina. A tourist recognized him, hesitated, didn't approach. Instead, just walked past, phone in hand. 5 minutes later, that phone uploaded a grainy photo. Arnold looking out over the water. Caption: "He hasn't said anything." Still made the world stammer. By 11 p.m., a student group at the University of Chicago published a fact sheet. Title: Fairness isn't a brand. It's a process. The PDF included USIS guidelines for O1 visa integrity, typical duration for modeling visa approvals, line-by-line comparison with Melania's public career timeline, no opinion. Just formatting. At the bottom, submitted without comment. The next morning, Claire was scheduled for a follow-up briefing. But when she entered the room, something had shifted. Not the chairs. Not the lighting. The cameras were still in the same place. But the silence felt leaning. As if everyone was waiting to hear what she wouldn't say. She cleared her throat. Read from a statement. Her voice hit every syllable. But the MIC caught it, the same inhale between lines. The kind that says, "I'm not sure if this will hold." One reporter whispered to another, "She's giving a speech for a truth that already left the building." Meanwhile, in a small conference room 2 floors above, Arnold's name was being discussed. 2 staffers. 1 advisor. 1 legal liaison. The question wasn't, what will he say next? It was, why hasn't he said anything? One aide nervously flipped a pen in his palm. Another pulled up Arnold's last official statement. A memo from 3 years ago about campaign ethics. At the bottom, a quote, "If you win by distortion, you didn't win." The room stayed quiet. Not because no one disagreed, but because they all knew that even if they did, the microphones now belonged elsewhere. At 1:14 p.m., the Georgetown hoodie girl posted again. This time, not a reaction clip. A black screen. White text only, "Remember when they laughed?" He didn't. He just waited. Hashtag, he did in T-Flinch later that night, on a conservative news stream, Wexler tried a pivot. He leaned forward in his seat, tie slightly askew. "There's no crime in silence," he declared. "In fact, some would say it's the most American thing to do, speak when you must, not when you're baited." But the camera didn't help him. Because it stayed wide, revealing his hand nervously tapping the armrest. An audience member clipped the tap. Posted it with the caption, "The sound of certainty cracking." At 2:06 a.m., a producer from BBC World News emailed Arnold's office. Subject, invitation to clarify position. The message ended politely. No urgency. No assumptions. Just a line that read, "We understand if your silence is your answer." And it was. Because somewhere in Santa Monica, the light in Arnold's study flicked off. No statement. No post. Just one item left on the table, a napkin. Folded in half. On it, scribbled in black ink, "They wanted a flame. I gave them a mirror." The photo was never meant to surface. It wasn't taken by a journalist. It wasn't part of the live stream. It came from a student, seated in the 3rd row, stage left, during a panel at the California Ethics Policy Forum. She hadn't planned on posting anything. She was just taking photos for her class write-up. But something felt strange when Arnold stood. Not because of what he said. Because of what he did before saying anything. She zoomed in later. Froze the frame. His hand, resting for half a second on the edge of a manila folder. Unmarked, slightly bent, corner stained with time. There was a single line visible on the top sheet. The penmanship was shaky but legible. Reviewed and approved in August 1983. That photo hit Reddit first. Captioned, "He didn't speak. The paper did." Within an hour, it had migrated to Twitter, Instagram, and 5 different TikTok edits. But it wasn't the content that went viral. It was the hand. Arnold's hand, not clenched, not gesturing, just resting. A calm pressure on top of a decade no one had asked about. A visual contradiction, physical stillness, historical weight. The frame no producer could crop. Meanwhile, the New York Times published a short op-ed title, "When the old file says more than the new spin buried halfway down, ethics isn't declared. It's filed." And sometimes, the paper outlasts the patriotism. Backstage at the ethics forum, a mid-tier campaign advisor whispered to his boss, "If we say nothing, it festers. If we say something, it confirms." The boss didn't reply. Just looked at the monitor, replaying Arnold's quiet exit. No speech. No wave. Only one action: he left the folder on the table. Didn't pick it up. Didn't explain it. That night, on a political commentary stream, two talking heads argued over immigration. But the audience chat wasn't following the debate. They were typing two words, over and over: the folder. The frame. Zoom in. A clip from the stream went viral, not for what the host said, but for the moment one of them glanced off screen and muttered, "Wait. Was that his own file?" Silence. Then a slow head shake. Then, no way he played them that hard. In Washington, a former DHS official was called in for a private briefing. The question on the table wasn't about Arnold's past. It was about why he brought it now. The official's answer: because nobody asked him to. And that's exactly what makes it a problem. Back in California, Arnold appeared briefly at a local community center. He wasn't scheduled to speak. Just visited the after-school program his late friend's son had once attended. He walked in, greeted the staff, shook a few hands. A child asked, "Are you the guy with the paper?" Arnold looked down, smiled softly. "No. That paper belongs to the people who never got to write one." By morning, the Ethics Forum organizers confirmed. The folder left on the table contained his original 1983 naturalization documents, his military service waiver, and two stamp letters verifying he had never applied for or received any special visa exemptions. All authenticated. No press release. Just scanned copies. Uploaded to the public archive. Title: Standard Citizen. Melania's camp issued a rare clarification. A one-paragraph statement. It mentioned past procedural adherence and ongoing respect for all immigration stories. But it didn't deny, didn't cite, didn't timestamp. And when a journalist asked directly, "Will Mrs. Trump release her visa file?" the answer was a pause. Then, "We'll get back to you." But they didn't. Because by now, they couldn't control the frame. At 10:48 p.m., the Georgetown hoodie girl posted again. Same black background. This time, the photo of Arnold's hand on the file. Caption: "He never raised his voice. He just raised the bar." At 11:17 p.m., someone posted the freeze frame to YouTube Shorts. Added a filter that highlighted only the hand and the corner of the paper. Title: The frame they couldn't crop. Comments flooded in. But the top one stayed pinned: "This is what power looks like, when it doesn't need to speak for itself." The Senate Subcommittee on Public Integrity met the following Tuesday. No cameras. No press pool. No Arnold. But his name came up. In a closed-door summary labeled Urgent Clarification Review, Naturalization and Appointee Transparency, 3 references were made to the California instance. No one said the word folder. No one said Melania. But every staffer knew what wasn't being said. And what couldn't be unsaid. On the public record, nothing changed. No vote. No subpoena. No press release. But on Georgetown Law Forum, the week's top search was no longer O1 visa. It was Public Ethics File Disclosure Precedent. That same evening, the Georgetown student in the grey hoodie, the one who'd first posted the frame, walked past the auditorium where it all began. She wasn't filming this time. Just walking past. But she slowed. On the bulletin board out front, someone had pinned a printed screenshot of Arnold's file photo, cropped not at the face, but the hand. Taped next to it, a piece of notebook paper with one line, underlined. Handwritten in shaky ink, because someone had to. No signature. No tag. Just the line. In Santa Monica, Arnold sat at a table that wasn't designed for paperwork. It was a kitchen counter, worn smooth, slightly scorched near the old coffee pot. A manila folder rested there. The same one. But this time, the top page was folded back. He didn't look at it. He looked out the window. A young staffer entered quietly, holding a draft memo. "Sir, the subcommittee might be moving toward voluntary disclosure for public appointees." Arnold nodded. Didn't take the memo. Just pointed to the folder. "It's already been disclosed." The staffer hesitated. Then asked, quietly, "Do you think it worked?" Arnold didn't answer. He picked up a pen, turned the notepad over, wrote a single word, then underlined it once, standard. The next day, in Fresno, he visited a local community college. No podium, no prep, just a folding chair and a circle of public policy students. One asked the question, "Sir, how do you know when the system's really listening?" Arnold tilted his head slightly, looked not at the student, but past them, toward a poster on the wall. A civics quote. One he didn't write, but always remembered. Silence is not compliance. Silence is the beginning of truth. He didn't respond directly. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded sheet of paper. The same paper, now creased along one edge. He placed it on the floor in front of him. Didn't unfold it. Didn't point. Just left it there. As the room fell still, a second student whispered, "That's the line, isn't it?" No one answered. But no one moved. By nightfall, the photo reappeared, this time on the wall of a subway station in Queens. It wasn't graffiti. It was wheat pasted. Carefully. Precisely. The image, Arnold's hand, the corner of the paper, and beneath it, one line in bold, "Because someone had to." Not a brand campaign. Not a movement. Just a still frame that refused to be cropped. And a truth that stayed, not because it shouted, but because it was underlined. Once. Deliberately. And forever.